Hello, everyone. Matthew and Betty, president of StoryLab. First, thank you. Thank you for showing up and supporting StoryLab's very first StorySlam. We really appreciate you being here. We'd also like to give a quick shout out to all of the storytellers or anyone that shared a personal experience throughout the night. We know the courage and vulnerability it takes to step on stage and tell a story, even if that stage is virtual. So again, thank you for showing up and supporting. Sometimes sitting down and listening and being present is one of the most important things people can do, and they don't even realize it. Please note, as you're listening to the stories, some of the stories contain sensitive or emotional topics, including mental health, grief, loss of a loved one, or other difficult life experiences. So we encourage viewers to engage with care and take whatever space you may need while watching. Thank you again for supporting StoryLab and our storytellers.
My name is Matt Giambetti. I'm the president of StoryLab, and we are so happy for you to be here tonight. We have a wonderful lineup of students all ready to tell their stories, some for the first time, and some have a little bit more experience with it. But regardless, it is a night full of courage. And so that is tonight's theme, because one, it takes courage to be able to step up and tell your story. And two, honestly speaking, I've heard these stories, a lot of courage throughout them as well. We have a wonderful lineup of, what is it, six storytellers and one slam poet. And Yvonne is going to be the one to start off the night for us with her slam poetry. We asked Yvonne if she can go anywhere in the world, where would she go? And she said, New Zealand. So if you don't mind, Yvonne, please kick off the night.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Like Matt said, my name is Yvonne, and this is my poem, Perfect. 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 Oh, perfect. Hmm. We're surrounded by it, by all of these perfect people with all of their perfect faces and perfect hair, their perfect spouses, perfect houses, and perfect lives. Too bad they're all perfect lies. You see, perfection is a deception. Oxymoronic, but sonic. Boom. Listen, all of these perfect solutions are impermanent, no matter how fervent the capitalistic machine makes us dream. In all of this, we've just demeaned what it means to be perfect. And to be perfectly honest, all of this perfection makes me dizzy, and I've been busy thinking that maybe it's just a facade to hide what's broken, even though it's never spoken about. It is about time we did an about face about this face. Or maybe it's just a filter that's knocked everything off kilter. I don't know. Anyway, it's the perfect time, I suppose, to set these woes in the throes and expose what everyone knows, but never says or thinks. Our imperfections are links, because if you're perfect, you're perfectly alone and prone to the drone that tells you you're not perfect enough. Sure, it takes more courage to be imperfect because our system doesn't encourage self-respect. So, let's start with you and me. Let's make it perfectly okay to say, I failed. I'm flawed. We should always laud honesty. Sip that tea and recall we're imperfect, one and all. Let's make perfect perfect again. I mean, why pretend when we can reassemble what we resemble? You be you. I'll be me. And together, maybe then we'll be free. Perfectly free. Perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. Fantastic job. I I know I heard that for the second time. It hits better the second time, I promise. So you might we might have to share out that recording at the end. Yes, a perfect reminder that we are all not perfect. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for kicking off the night. And next, I would like to introduce our first storyteller for the night. When asked what's a song that always puts her in a good mood, she said Coldplay's Sleeping Sun. So I'd like to welcome Emma.
Thank you, Matt. At 8 years old, I was crowned the King of New York. That's the name of a musical number from the movie musical Newsies. And it's the first musical I ever performed in. So in 2011, I stood on a stage, the lights went up, and I transformed into a newsgirl delivering newspapers in 1899 New York City. And just like that, I was bitten by the theater bug, and I was going to go to Broadway. At the time, I was living in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, not too far from Broadway. But before I got there, I had to take a little bit of a detour. That's because the next year, my family and I moved to Southern California to be closer to extended family. And with that, I brought my Broadway dreams along with me, and I started training in musical theater on the West Coast. At the same time, now that I was living on the other coast, I was closer to the ocean, which meant that I also developed a passion for marine biology. So my days consisted of watching whales from shore, visiting aquariums, and exploring tide pools, all while taking voice acting and dance classes. So I had these two competing passions, and it was the 2016 Tony Awards that helped me decide which passion I was going to pursue. That year, Paper Mill Playhouse, a regional theater based in Northern New Jersey, won the Tony for Best Regional Theater. And I couldn't believe it. That's because Paper Mill is the exact same theater where the stage musical version of Newsies first premiered in 2011, the exact same year that I first performed in it. So it was clear I had to get to Paper Mill. So 2 years later, my family and I moved back to the East Coast, 15 minutes away from Paper Mill, and I started taking classes at their theater school. But what I really wanted to do was get into their summer musical theater. Uh, Sorry, I hear some noise. Oh, okay, I'll continue. But what I really wanted to do was get into their summer musical theater conservatory. That's their big annual flagship program that they have every year for the best young musical theater performers in the region. And I was going to get in. So the first year I auditioned for the program was in 2019. And I sang, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?" from the musical My Fair Lady. But as it turned out, it actually wasn't so lovely because I didn't get in. In my post-audition feedback, out of a score of 5, the judges gave me a satisfactory 2.71. And in their feedback to me, they said that even though my performance was focused, I was a little bit too choreographed. Well, I wasn't going to let that stop me because the next year I auditioned again. And this time I sang how times are hard for dreamers, but they won't be hard for me from the musical Amelie. But again, as it turned out, the times were hard for me because I didn't get in again. Although I am proud to say that this time I got a score of 2.89, that is an improvement of 0.18 points. But in their post audition feedback, this time the judges said that even though I had a nice connection to the lyrics, I was not loud enough. I was too quiet. So after 2 years in a row of not getting into this program, I was devastated, obviously. At this point, I had spent about a decade training in musical theater, and I still had this lifelong dream of wanting to make it on Broadway. But when it came time for my big moment, it just didn't happen. So was coming to Paper Mill a giant mistake? Was it just a complete waste of time? Was it never meant to be in the first place? So after all of those in the moment emotions faded away, I had to have a serious conversation with myself. Clearly, I had a passion for performing, the artistic side of musical theater, but professionally, I had to accept that there were many others who were much more talented than I was. And maybe I just didn't exactly have what it took to succeed in musical theater as a career. But what was I going to do? Just give up my dream just like that? At the same time, though, there were a few other interesting things happening in my life. I was writing for my high school newspaper and loving it. My passion for marine biology never faded. And I discovered this little known career called science writing. So I like to think, looking back, that even though paper mill didn't make my original dream come true, it did teach me that it's perfectly okay to have a different one. And I would say things ended up working out pretty well. Off I went to college. I ended up studying journalism and eventually became the editor in chief of my university's newspaper. And today I study science writing at the graduate level at Johns Hopkins, and I'm on my way to becoming an environmental and ocean journalist. But don't worry, musical theater is still very much a part of my life to this day. I still see Broadway shows as often as I can. I still sing around the house a little bit too often. And plus, there are so many lessons from musical theater that I still carry with me to this day. I may not be auditioning for song anymore, but I am auditioning through email when I send pitches of my stories to editors at different publications. And I may no longer be using acting objectives when I perform, but I am using writing objectives, which help guide me as I write my different pieces. So, if you really think about it, 15 years after first performing in Newsies, I may not be delivering the news, but I am writing about it. And so, I guess you could say that Newsies, all those years ago, predicted that I was always going to become a journalist, a storyteller through words. And that, I think, is something to sing about. Thank you.
Fantastic. What an outstanding story. I love it. And honestly speaking, again, the theme of the night is courage. The amount of courage that it takes to stand up on stage and sing or sing in front of an audience like this is, one in a million. So fantastic job, Emma. We really appreciate you sharing your story. So going along with the theme of song, the song that always gets our next storyteller in a good mood is September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. I would like to welcome Chloe.
Hi, everybody. Content warning. This story and song, contains some pretty sensitive stuff. Contains some, yeah. I speak about the death of a loved one, so if you need to step away, go ahead. I am a musician, and my family full of musicians. So as I was growing up, we wrote music together, and I had this best friend named Tally. And Tally was part of the family. She wasn't a musician, but she was my biggest cheerleader. She came to all of my shows, all of my gigs, super, super supportive. And when my first album came out in 2011, she was the first one to have a copy. And her favorite song was this song called Soft Place to Fall that I wrote with my parents. So when Tally had this work assignment in her early 20s, and she had to go overseas into the wilderness for like a week with no cell service and didn't speak the language, she was pretty terrified because she was essentially camping with no contact with anyone she knew. But she brought her, I thought it was a CD player, but I think it was actually an MP3 player. She brought it with her, and on that player, she had Soft Place to Fall. So after that trip, she told me she played it over and over and over again to comfort herself. And I was so happy that I could be with her in that moment, even though I couldn't physically be with her. A couple years later, Tally was killed in an accident. And I was speechless. I knew that what I really wanted to do was play my song Soft Place to Fall at her funeral. She had a funeral in DC where she was living. But I was so scared that people would think that I was making it about me, and it was so not about me, but it was about us. That was our connection. Still, I decided against it, and I wrote out this whole speech on my very, very chunky MacBook Pro. And now I think about this and I realize it probably wasn't kosher, but I brought that MacBook Pro up with me onto the Bima, put it down, and read my speech straight from the computer. And I was a mess after many, 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 many minutes of what I thought was coherent, but probably didn't make sense to most people. It really was like me talking to Tally, saying goodbye to her. After all this time, her dad stood up and walked up to me and placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Chloe, it's time for you to sit down. Other people want to talk." I was mortified. I also can't imagine what he was going through because he had just lost his daughter. But it hurt so badly because I was like, oh my gosh, he thinks I'm making this about me. And that was the opposite of what I wanted to do. In hindsight, this is 14 years later, after lots and lots of therapy and processing, I realized that I was making it about me. Also, I realized I'm a performer. I can sing in front of 30,000 people, and I just bombed my best friend's funeral. It was like an out-of-body experience. So Tally had another funeral in Florida where we had grown up together, and I asked if I could just read the lyrics to "Soft Place to Fall," just to say goodbye to her in our hometown, and I was told no. And I really wanted to connect with her family after that, but I just couldn't. However, Tally had a boyfriend for several years named Gerard. And within the following months and then years, Gerard and I got to be like siblings, like brother and sister. We got so platonically close. It was the coolest surprise. And a year after Tally passed away, this is before we realized how close we would be, he moved to Japan to teach English. And he's lived there since. He ended up meeting this woman named Remy, and I didn't get to meet her in person until my partner and I went over, and and as soon as Remy and I we met in the Kyoto train station, and we locked eyes and we started crying because it felt like spring, it felt like renewal, and Gerard and I realized that our friendship was, thank goodness we had Tally, and we'll always love Tally, but our friendship was now us. So fast forward maybe 2 years, Gerard and Remy had a wedding celebration, and they insisted that we FaceTime. I couldn't make it, so they insisted that we FaceTime to watch some of their video. And so as the video comes on, they planted this seed saying, "Oh, you were there with us. Don't worry," because couldn't physically be there. And then they pulled up their first dance, and as soon as I heard the music, I was again speechless. When there's nowhere to turn and the choices are few, when the world's got you down and you're broken in two, life is never easy when you're up against a wall, like a deep winter snow where summer grass is tall. I'll be your soft place to fall. And I'll be your soft place to fall. Thank you.
Awesome job, Chloe. That was fantastic. You almost made it through it this time. It was so close. No, you did that was wonderful. That was wonderful. I know how emotional of a story that was. Um, Fantastic job. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that with us. Our next storyteller, when asked, "What's a small thing that makes your day better?" answered, "Seeing the sun rise or sunset." So beautiful moments in life. I would like to welcome Melissa.
Would $1 ease your troubles? A kind man on the street asked me. No. And my crying continued. Let's back up a step. Rewinding to when I was in fourth grade. When I was in fourth grade, and I had the most phenomenal teacher. She brought to my fourth grade class a video of a commercial playing on TV. And the commercial was for a local children's hospital. And it focused on a girl who was getting headaches from her third period algebra class. Now, at the time, I hadn't known about gender stereotypes and all these things, but she informed us about gender bias and Title IX and gender equality, and she taught us about what some of the things that are wrong in the world and some of the things we can do to make a difference. And so we 9-year-olds wrote letters to this children's hospital. And unbeknownst to us at the time, our principal wrote letters to the Washington Post and Good Morning America and other news agencies. And before long, in our classroom at school, there was the Washington Post reporters and Good Morning America reporters, and other reporters were coming and telling our story. And before long, the Children's Hospital didn't like this kind of media attention, and they took the commercial off the air. A group of 9-year-olds was able to get a commercial off the air. And so I left that moment armed with the deep-seated knowledge that I could make a difference. And if there's a change that I wanted to see in the world, there was nothing too big. Anything was possible. The next year, I ran for student council president, and I won. Very exciting. And I was talking to my mentor of mine about what my future might hold. And he warned me that maybe I had my sights a little too big. Becoming president of the United States maybe wasn't the best goal. And I'm like, and you're 9 years old, you can be anything, right? And he told me that because I was a girl and because I was Jewish, it wasn't a safe choice. I'd probably end up shot. Whew. Fast forward, and despite this warning, I didn't decide to be president of the United States. I had other goals in mind, but I still wanted to make a difference, and I still knew that I could. And I didn't know how much I should trust this mentor anyway. He'd been affected by the MLK and the Kennedy shootings back in the 60s, and so times had passed. But fast forward, and when I saw a presidential candidate in 2016 saying the completely inappropriate comments that I was hearing, I was shocked. And it was a time that I was like, I need to be able to make a difference. And so I joined. I went and volunteered with the Hillary campaign in Reno, Nevada. I hopped on a bus for 3 hours. I got there. I knocked on as many doors as I could. I hated it. I went back the next weekend. I hated it. I went back the next weekend, all the way through Election Day. It was a challenge, but I did what I could. And out of the drive and the anger and just the intention to make a difference, I showed up. And while I understand we didn't win the broader election in 2016 in Nevada, we won. So I got a little bit, at least we won where I was. Tiny bit of relief inside. And as soon as the election ended and everything didn't quite go back to normal, but I heard that there was an opening, a couple of openings for Senate seats, and one of them was in New Orleans. And I was like, if I make any change in the next 4 years, it's to make sure that Senate seat goes blue, to help fight whatever the agenda is, so that I can make sure that I can make a difference. And so I went down to Reno, Nevada, or sorry, not Reno, Nevada. This time I went down to New Orleans and I joined the campaign team. I showed up and I knocked on doors, and fortunately, very soon they said, "You're here till election day. You're going to be in the office helping coordinate the volunteers." And I was like, "Thank goodness, this sounds much better." So I coordinated volunteers, but I couldn't sleep at night. Every day from morning till evening, it felt like that moment was the most important moment I'd ever lived. I had to focus and get things done efficiently, and what more could we do, and how could I just make the most of this time? And with that pounding of now all day long, how could someone sleep at night? And then there were the little things where one place I stayed, the woman woke up at 5:30 in the morning and I would wake up by it. Or another place had a fire alarm that was chirping every few minutes. And finally, the campaign put me up in the hotel where they held staff. So that was very, very nice and generous. However, as the campaign approached, I had been working day in and day out, and my body just had enough. I wasn't feeling well, and I walked down to the Walgreens so I could buy a thermometer to take my temperature. And as I was almost entering, I saw a homeless man outside, and I realized I hadn't had a hug in days, maybe like over a week. And I was like, I really need a hug. I bet he needs a hug too. So I gave him a hug, and at first it was really lovely, really wonderful, until all of a sudden his hips started to move back and forth, and I pushed away and I ran off, and then there I was, in my grief for the election results, in my pain for what I just experienced, and with my body feverish, crying outside on a street in New Orleans, where somebody thought maybe $1 could help my troubles. Now, fortunately, what I needed for my troubles was meditation. I later learned that. I did a whole 10-day Goenka course, and it changed my life. Because when I later was called back by the same campaign manager of that campaign to say, "Hey, are you available? We've got this campaign coming up." It was in early 2020. And I was able to say yes, because I had just come back from that meditation. I was like, I think if I've ever been able to do it, I could do it right now. And so I joined that campaign team, and later got to have the huge honor of being part of the Biden-Harris campaign national calls program. And the absolute highlight there was the day that Biden and Harris won. Right before they got to announce it publicly, they announced it to us staff. And remember being that little girl who was told at age 10, I couldn't be president. I was a woman, I was Jewish, watching Kamala Harris in her excitement, in her joy, was a dream come true. That she would be the next vice president of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay. Matt, can you do the spotlight? I'm here to introduce, let's just reflect on Melissa's for one sec. Thank you for promoting meditation. It has saved my life too. Thank you for your service. And I loved seeing the joy on your face as you got to experience that dream come true. So thank you for your story. Okay, Matt, will you please, okay, we're gonna welcome Matt. And Matt's favorite food is any Indian curry. This is what he tells me. So I hope it's true, because if we ever decide to DoorDash you, that's what you're gonna get. Okay. Please, everybody, welcome Matt.
I'm 17 and I'm walking through about 3 feet of snow. My fingertips are red and painful, and I'm frozenly gripping a box of strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts. Now, I'm on an adventure to deliver these Pop-Tarts to a girl I like, because I'd heard previously in school her mention the fact that these were her favorite Pop-Tarts, and I'm going to be the hero that romantically delivers them. Like, what an amazing gesture this is. How romantic. And I'm walking for miles in the snow because I don't really know where she lives. I just know what her car looks like. But every footstep I take is just reinforcing that thought in the back of my head that I'm a romantic person, and what I'm doing is showcasing my love and affection. No, I'm not totally certain where I got these ideas that this was love and affection from. I never had like a typical role model. I never got like an old-fashioned birds and the bees talk. I never found her house. She never got the Pop-Tarts. A few years go by. I'm 18. I get my first girlfriend, and amongst my friend group, I am the late bloomer, and so I'm constantly being made fun of. But like, who cares? I I found this girl, and it's fantastic. It's great. It's over. It's over. 6 months have gone by, and that was enough time for her to decide that I wasn't the one for her. Um, I didn't I didn't know how to take it because up to this point I have tried to go out of my way to remember all these really cool facts about her and get her cool gifts and just take her places. And as I'm standing in her kitchen as she's breaking up with me and I'm crying, I'm holding a copy of Interview with a Vampire, which is a movie that I went out and got for her. It was her favorite movie. And inside I'm so conflicted. I'm just so emotional. I thought this was love. I thought this was going to be a lot longer than 6 months, that's for sure. I can't figure out, like, what did I do wrong? Am I not displaying my affection correctly? I don't get it. Well, luckily the heart heals. A few years go by and I meet the person that will be the one. We just click immediately. We get along so well. We're always having fun. We're always joking with each other. It's so easy to have a conversation, and every moment is just on top of the world. 2 years go by, and we get pregnant. We're having our first child, and it's a moment of celebration. I've always wanted this. I've always wanted a family. I was so thrilled, and who a better person to do this with than her? But there's this overlooming uh, shadow of her parents, and they're saying the same phrase over and over and over again. You have to make things right. You have to make things right. And what they mean is marriage. You have to get married. And I listen to what they say and I think to myself, yeah, you're right. What we do have to get married. And what a better show. There's no better show of affection and love than a marriage. When you're standing up there and you're saying your vows to one another, there's nothing more sincere and more a better reflection of love than that moment. And there I am. I'm in my tux. I'm watching her walk down the aisle. My heart is beating out of my chest. My hands are clammy. I can't even breathe right. And I'm just overtaken by the moment. But it's kind of funny, time erases some of those feelings and some of those thoughts. And 5 years later was enough time for me to forget those vows. It was enough time for me to forget that entire moment as I'm standing in my bedroom with her, telling her that I'm not happy and I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And I'm still not totally certain what I meant in that moment, but it started to put things in motion. We start going through the process of getting a divorce, and we're trying to be friendly and amicable to the best of our abilities. And our family is where the tension comes from. Her parents defending her and my parents defending me. Well, one day I'm at work and I'm going out on my lunch break, and I feel my pocket vibrate. My phone's going off. And I pull it out of my pocket and I look at it and I see my father-in-law's name going across the phone. And I stop and I go, what could he want? And I think to myself, I know what he wants. He wants me to make things right. He wants me to fix this. He wants me to just pretend like everything is okay now and go forward with everything. And it's not happening. So I answered the phone to tell him that. And the moment I put the phone to my ear, it is just this explosion of loud anger coming out, screaming at me. Where are you? I'm going to come find you. I'm going to end you. And I'm taken back. This is not what I expected to hear on the call. And he explained to me that I had sent him song lyrics that he took as I was going to be trying to harm his daughter. Now, what had happened was I had mistakenly sent him lyrics that were meant for a friend, and they come from a pop punk emo song, which reflectively, yes, I can understand where he got that idea from. So his defensiveness was definitely justified. I'm so taken back that I'm in tears at this point, and I'm talking to him calmly. He starts to calm down. I start to calm down. And then I hear this one piercing line. I'll be the man that teaches your son how to love. And it was like a gut punch. The wind's knocked out of me, and I start frantically going into defensive mode. You've just attacked my entire character. I'm a person that will walk through a blizzard to deliver Pop-Tarts. What do you mean you're going to show my son how to love? What do you mean that you're going to be the one that can showcase better than me? And I start stacking up our acts, our deeds against one another. And I compare my list to his, and I'm like, well, I remember colors and birthdays and events, and I buy gifts. And then his is, he sacrifices time, and he makes real commitment, and he makes sure that his family and my family were taken care of while we were together. And he makes sure that he dedicates himself fully to showcasing his love. It was pretty easy comparison. I lost. But in that moment, I realized that I didn't really have a good understanding of what love was, what it is, and how it can be showcased. But I'll say this, my kids are going to be 15, and my son is, my daughter turns 15 this year. My son is 12, and I've never been more confident that I'm going to be the person that shows them how to love. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And this may sound corny, but I don't care. Maybe you taught us all how to love a little bit better with that story. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, we have Jill. Fun fact about Jill. Jill is graduating this spring. Woo! Let's just give a big congratulations to Jill. Yvonne's also graduating, right? I didn't want to miss that. Jill is graduating in the spring with an MA in communication. And Jill loves Hopkins so much. Jill is the proudest Blue Jay that Jill is going back for a Master of Science in Public Health after she graduates. Huge congratulations, Jill. Take it away.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share my screen because I've actually got a PowerPoint for you all. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Just kidding, but thank you to Dr. Sherry for inspiring this story. All right. So, many years ago, when I was a student at a small liberal arts college, I signed up to be a peer mentor. It was the year 2020, and I was sold on the free trainings. Maybe those 2 weeks of workshops on mental health first aid and suicide intervention would help me learn how to save myself and my friends during those semesters quarantined. So I got the trainings, but I had forgotten that they weren't just for my benefit. I was now a lifeline for others, the person you turn to when you're feeling homesick or struggling without a place in the community. Yet, I didn't even trust in my own ability to connect yet. Well, I was assigned my first mentee, and for those who can't tell, I'm white. And like many white Americans, I grew up in predominantly white schools. My mentee was Black. I now knew how to talk her down from a high ledge, but I didn't know how to just talk to her. Do I recommend she join organizations for students of color, like the NAACP? Or is that racist to suggest? Do I acknowledge that I'm white, or would that make this unrelated conversation about race? Do I stay silent and risk a colorblind impression, or is race an important part of this conversation to make sure that she gets the resources and the support that she needs? My uncertainty showed. During our first meeting, I could feel my face get hot from the blood boiling up in my cheeks. I jumped between awkward pauses and speaking as much as I could in a single breath. Oh, do you know this student who is Black? Or this one random white freshman, or this one? They're in these clubs you might like. I failed her miserably. Within the next semester, she dropped out. Well, there were several reasons for this. I certainly did not help, and very well could have been one of the contributors. Back then, I normally would have run from my social failings, but I had a blessing in disguise. As much as I dreaded it, I knew my next mentee could be a person of color, and it kept me accountable. I started going to campus talks relating to diversity. I took a course on stereotyping and prejudice, and while I didn't feel like I was allowed to at first, I eventually joined my college's NAACP chapter. These experiences helped me understand the scope of the issue, but I was no closer to finding my chill on a personal level. Fast forward to senior year. I had just finished a workshop course on leadership, and I was currently doing a group project in sociology. I had just bought baby dolls from Goodwill to use as props in our video. When my groupmate and I pulled out the props to discuss how we were going to segment our video, chucking each doll out a window to symbolize the ways the education system was failing students, a Black student in the desk beside us turned and said, "Don't you think that's kind of racist?" I looked down and I realized that while most of the dolls were stuffed animals and plushies, the only human one was a light-skinned Black baby doll. Embarrassed and in denial, my groupmate and I downplayed her concern. "It's just a doll." As soon as the words left my mouth, though, they didn't feel right. I spent the class reflecting on the right way to respond based on my leadership course. After class, I walked up to her. "Hey, thank you for bringing the doll issue to my attention. I don't want our video to unintentionally perpetuate harm, so we won't use it in our video." Oh. The look on her face told me that that was the first time anyone had ever responded to her that way. And now she was the one downplaying it. "It's fine. It's just a doll. I swear, it's no big deal." But it was a big deal. This small interaction cemented my path within public health. Where my courses gave me the theoretical knowledge to understand how racism was institutional, I had just witnessed how powerful solutions can be on a personal level. In the field of psychology, we refer to these solutions as social scripts. Having the statement, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm taking accountability by blank," empowered me to correct or wrong what I would otherwise have frozen in the moment and then let the shame of my mistake consume me forever after. Even better, I feel paradoxically closer to that peer and more self-assured despite having just made a social blunder. After that interaction, I began to believe that maybe the source of racism wasn't just the system, but a culture-wide failure to communicate. While soft skills are a high priority in the job market, we don't have the core curriculum dedicated to teaching social emotional learning, relational skills, or conflict management. It's no surprise then that white people aren't entering diverse spaces, that young adults are lonely yet struggling to connect, and that it feels like no one is actually listening to each other on the things that matter. We haven't been shown how. If we want others to do right by us, we can start by showing them how and how to do it well. Thank you.
Jill, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was fantastic. And I think we've all had that moment where we weren't quite sure if we said something correct or we shouldn't. But I would like to applaud your courage to be able to admit the wrong and go up and make a difference in a person's life. So thank you. Now, our next storyteller, when asked where they would like to go, said Orlando. Really likes roller coasters, a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I would like to welcome Eric.
One can never imagine how hard a fat boy's childhood is. When I was 3, a serious lung disease caught me, and the treatment for asthma turned me into a chubby ball. My weight increased to a scary 200 pounds at the age of 12. And for a fat boy with a weak body and an introverted heart, the most bitter thing is not the pain in the body, but the lingering cold eyes around me all the time, everywhere. Discriminations against silent athletic classmates was prevalent common among kids in my childhood, and memories from those days have already been blurry. Well, the only thing still wandering in my heart is the permanent hopeless gray in my sky, the thick clouds preventing any light that wants to shine on a boy in the shadow. Without any friends, I had gradually gotten used to a lonely life during the years with cold shoulders. Things in my life remained the same in the first 17 years, and used to a life in darkness, I didn't even realize I was walking on a road to depression. Maybe I have already reached the end. The last year of my senior high, my mind was entangled with winds of noises from all directions, heavy workload, tiny leisure time, and confusion about the future, intertwined together with deep-rooted loneliness, dragging me, an already drawing boy, into the bottomless abyss. My will was a single boat at sea, aimlessly floating anywhere by the strong waves and collapsing on a submerged reef. That was the darkest day in my life. Ending another meaningless day, I stepped on the rooftop, sitting down at the edge of the building, in front of which were freezing winds 10 floors high. The mighty depression had the power to make a tiny boy brave enough to face the scariest thing. Trembling occupied my whole body after I slowly closed my eyes. When I was about to end all of this through a last fall, I felt a soft hand on my right shoulder. It's a beautiful dusk, isn't it? Said the girl sitting beside me gently. Dying in such a pretty sunset, it's a lucky ending, but embracing thousands of greater sunsets in the future is much more meaningful. That was also the brightest day in my life. After I was stunned for a moment, we started a long talk without any distance, with her on my side, sharing her stories and unfolding her past. Even the roaring winds seemed soft. Only someone who has never been treated well can recognize and treasure the purest kindness. That was the first time someone got so close to me, both physically and mentally. It's also the first time I totally opened my heart to someone else. She was a transfer student, and it was her first day in my class. Her magic words and tune totally changed my mind after only a few hours of talking. See you tomorrow in class. She waved her hands to say goodbye. Her smiling eyes became becoming the moon's. Several seconds later, I suddenly smelled the catching perfume she wore, faint but mighty, with an invisible hook which could only be felt after its owner's leave. Sometimes the fated love story has already been written by God in his book of destiny. And even though that was the first time I met her, spending a few hours together, I had an intense feeling that we had known each other for a long time. I heard a voice which echoes from the bottom of my heart. I want to be with her. I made up my mind, swearing to become a better person who is qualified to be her partner. I started to to jump, to run, to exercise as much as I can, to make friends, to talk, to share, to communicate, to feel the beauty of the world around me, and to embrace all parts of myself. Regular exercise, a limited diet, and a begging stomach and rid me of 60 pounds in 3 months, along with which my personality entirely changed to an outgoing and positive man. Throughout my whole transition, she always kept me company on my side, encouraging, supporting, and empowering me with new hope. It was another dusk. I gathered my courage and asked her, I love you. Do you want to be with me? She burst out laughing, jumping up and running upstairs. Catch up with me, and I will tell you. After wheels of chasing and laughter, we arrived at the place of our first meeting, where the sunset looked even more breathtaking. She didn't say a word, but staring into the distance and then looking at me with subtle wings swaying a few strands of her hair. I saw another sun in her crystal eyes, the sun with infinite warmth and endless energy, brighter than any sunset in my past years. Days with her were the most peaceful and blessing period in my life forever. I ended a lifestyle alone. Every day we rode on the same table, wandering and running together on campus. My life became powerful and colorful because of her existence. We shared one same pancake, secretly chatting in class, and worked out in the gym as coaches for each other, and planned for the future when watching the sunset together at dusk. She likes leaning on my shoulder. I want to go to Duke. She hugged my right arm. Together with you. Her words set a new goal for my meaning of life, and we studied together every day, practicing spoken English, preparing for the IELTS test, and revising the personal statement again and again. With a clear destination, all the efforts I made were much more inspiring, and no matter how hard the work was, her smile and hug could recover all my exhaustion. Day by day, I was used to this new life with happiness and hope, expecting a brighter future together with her. She was my galaxy. She overshadowed everything else in my life. She brought so many significant meanings to my life. Maybe God thought I didn't deserve such an angel, so he just gave me the most heartbreaking punishment when I believed that I could enjoy all of this forever. Her stomach cancer was already in an advanced age at that time, and the reason why he came to my city was to get better treatment in a more developed city when it was still in an early age. In the hospital, sitting by her bed, I held her left hand with my trembling right arm. My tears had already dried up and with the trembling lips. When I looked at her face with my red elbows, she slowly opened her eyes. The shining smile on her face still warmed my heart in just 1 second. Will you die for me? She asked, holding my hand even harder. Of course I will. I love you. I can give you my everything. I answered without any hesitation. Um, that's a boring question, isn't it? Let's have a new one. Will you live for me? I just couldn't hold back my tears. Without you, I am nothing. My life is nothing. I can never, ever live without you. Bullshit. She held my hand in her arms. You are the best one, no matter what happened. Do never do stupid things again, okay? I saved you. Don't let my efforts down. Look at you. Maybe my mission is to save and heal you. And how wonderful you are. My mission is perfectly completed, so I'm going to another world, maybe. Make it to Duke for me. The sunset there must be much more beautiful than ours. And I want you to live every second of your life, even without me. Stand tall and keep your faith. Be the one you are meant to be. And I don't dare to recall more about the last days staying with my galaxy. And A few months later, I stepped into the Duke company in the freshman opening ceremony with her photo in my inner pocket. Her leave turned my world gray again, but her love sported me to stand fast. And finally, I made it for myself and for her. Today, every burning sunset at dusk still reminds me of our first official date. And that day, we climbed a hill to the top. Not so high, but enough for us to view the entire city. I see a lot of mountains, high mountains. I stare at a distance, hugging her with my right arm. Not only here in front of us, but also on the road of my life. What will be waiting there for me after I go over all of them? I don't care. It doesn't matter. She leaned her head on my shoulder, eyes shining with a lively spark. I just know I am with you. Thank you so much.
Wow, Eric, that was incredible. How are you feeling right now?
I'm so sorry. I'm just a little bit. I'm so. Every time I recall I recall those years and tell this story to my friends and my classmates, that will be a really hard day for me because I really I don't want to recall those days. That was heartbreaking. But I need to learn to face all the pain, and that was the first pain I have to recover. But I think she really gave me a lot of power and strength, and I'm gonna live with all those wonderful experience and for her and for myself.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I wanted to check in with you after that one. That was definitely a great example of telling a story from a scar, not a wound. Fantastic, Eric. Well, really
Thank you.
well done. And I will then proceed for our final storyteller. Some things that people might not know about her. She has a Peruvian hairless dog. I would like to welcome Shannon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm still recovering from that last story. That was really beautiful. Okay, so I lived in Madagascar for about 13 years, and driving there, completely different world. There was maybe one traffic light and stop signs, they were optional. But horns were everywhere. Not angry horns, friendly horns like, hey there, beep beep, coming through, or beep beep, go right ahead. I mean, it was all really amicable. And then I came back to the States. And I've been back almost as long as I lived there. I'm still not used to driving in the DMV. So recently, I'm driving my daughter to meet her friend at the movies. We're on the Beltway and it's chaos. People are zigzagging across the lanes, cutting each other off like it's a competitive sport. But we finally make it to Rio and Gaithersburg. And every single person in the state of Maryland is there. So traffic is crawling. But I'm chill, totally chill. We left early. I'm with my daughter. We're going to be early no matter what. So I'm good. We enter a traffic circle. It's one of those nightmare ones with like 5 or 6 exits. And to my right, there's a line of about 20 cars just trying to get in. And I think, you know what? I'm going to be nice. I'm going to coexist. So I wave a car on in. And wow, imagine my surprise when that tiny little random act of kindness is met by a wall of blaring noise. Horns blasting. Not Madagascar horns. No, these people have committed to the horn. Woman behind me is screaming and flipping me off. Another guy's like, what the F are you doing? You have the right of way. You get the idea. Now, what I should do is just ignore them. Like, just keep going. Just keep moving. Right? But what I do is completely lose it. I roll down my window, I stick my head out, and I just start yelling back. To my credit, I do not use any expletives, but I am loudly, passionately, aggressively trying to explain myself. Like, if I can just explain myself, they'll all calm down and be like, oh, yeah, good idea. That's right. Thank you. Oh, thank you for your service. But then two things happen. One, I remembered that the week before, a family was tragically stabbed on 495 because of road rage. And two, I finally hear my daughter quietly saying, Mom, please stop. And just like that, all that anger dissipates, but it's replaced with something so much worse, and that is shame. So I apologize immediately for losing my cool. I'm like on the verge of tears. And she looks at me so calm and she says, Mom, it's okay. You made a mistake and you learn from it. That's what really matters. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be my line. But I drop her off, and on the way home, I'm berating myself. I'm like, why did I let those people get under my skin? I don't even know them. But I know my daughter, and she's the only one whose opinion matters. So I make a little vow. I'm like, focus on what matters. Let the rest go. Well, about a month later, I'm driving her to school, and we're at this weird intersection where if you live around there like I do, you know what to do. But the person behind me did not know what to do. And they laid on the horn. And I feel it. That surge, I reach for the window, but I feel a hand on my arm. It's gentle. I look over to my daughter and I stop and I remember and I say, You're right. Thank you, Beebs. I don't care what they think. And she said, That's right. You don't care what they think. And we started laughing, like, I don't care. You don't care. We don't care. We don't care. And it turns out that is so much easier to say when she's in the car with me. Thank you so much.
Shannon, fantastic job. I know I said it before, but just that moment of reflection when you have to admit that your child is right about something can be a little hard. Wonderful story, wonderfully spoken. Well done. All of our storytellers tonight, you did a phenomenal job. I am so happy that you took the time to, one, develop a story, and two, that you were brave enough and courageous enough to come tonight and speak in front of an audience. Really appreciate it. You guys are all wonderful. With that, I did want to open the floor up if anyone wanted to do like a little open mic storytelling. Just do like a little hand raise or unmute and say me if you'd like to. More than welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, and that's totally okay. Thank you again, everybody, for coming tonight, for supporting our students who were brave enough to tell their stories on a stage. We really, really, really appreciate you coming and supporting us. It means the world. StoryLab is continuing to try and promote these types of events. We are constantly trying to immerse ourselves in what storytelling is and how powerful it can be when you hear someone's story, whether it is a personal story, a story on the behalf of an organization, or just in general. It really does connect humanity. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it.